Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lara, adoptee, psychotherapist, adoption researcher and wellbeing advocate. In my previous videos to this point, I have been talking about the findings of my research and the 6 points for adoptive parents and prospective adopters to consider in their parenting approach. And as always, I will link that video in this video. And I've been speaking in fairly general terms so far in terms of the things to bear in mind. So very much around open communication, opening up those conversations, your own securities within relationship, and how your own behaviours might trigger or worsen the anxieties or the pain of an adoptee. And I think that sometimes those things are happening unconsciously. But that's the point, is that now that we have the awareness around these things, is to be more cognizant of these things and to try and incorporate them into the parenting practice where possible. And I always say, I think if you're intending to do things in largely the right way, then that's a brilliant starting point. You're not going to be perfect. Nobody's a perfect person or a perfect parent. Parenting's really tough, and parenting an adoptee with all the myriad issues that comes along with that is very tough indeed. But it takes for us to have that knowledge to at least try and aim to that. And I think if you can kind of achieve that most of the time, then it's certainly a heck of a lot better than having no idea about it. And what does it take? I think it takes a degree of self-awareness. It takes a degree of understanding yourself and having a level of emotional intelligence. One of the findings of the research was the ability to mentalize the experience of your adoptee. And what that actually means is to step into the experience conceptually that they're having. I think if you have that as a way of thinking, as a system, a belief system, if you like, around your adoptee's life, then that's a really good place to start. And there might be times where you're really challenged, but it's essentially how you think about it that is going to make a difference. And for you to be able to mentalize, for people to be able to mentalize the experiences of others, we need levels of theory of mind, which most, not all, humans have ability to access. But it does mean that you've got to be aware of these things. And so therefore the emotional intelligence of understanding what you're saying, what you're doing, and how that might affect your adoptee is super important. So the mentalization of their experience and then the open communication was a really big theme within that. And so yeah, so I've been reasonably generic up to this point, and I'd like to spend the next few videos kind of just getting a little bit more specific on what kind of topics to open up conversations around with adoptees. There are certain things that are quite triggering. There are certain reminders in our everyday experiences that to most people might seem completely innocuous and very innocent, but as an adoptee, it's like your radar is turned on all the time. So to be mindful of those things and to bear those things in mind is really going to help that relationship, and to open up the conversations around that is even better, because if you can receive that information and react from a place of compassion and understanding and kindness, and not make that about you, then you're already onto a winner. You know, it's hard to be adopted. It's hard to be expected to be living in a life that you didn't choose, and it's all of those things are very challenging, pre-verbally and pre-consciously, if you like. And once there's the awareness around that, then it becomes super difficult. And you know, this is why a lot of people act out, or in other words, externalizing, and I have a video on that, or they go inwards and try and process all of that inside of themselves. The opportunities to have those conversations in an authentic and non-judgmental way, where there's no agenda other than just wanting your adoptee to express themselves is a really amazing thing. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the things that comes up an awful lot when I speak with people, and it's around the physicality. It's around our physical selves. So I was brought up in a same-race family, and largely the culture was also the same, and yet I'd really struggled with my identity, and so that's just my own anecdotal story, but I hear it all the time from other adoptees. There's something about, I feel like there's an unconscious knowledge, and this is probably to do with the genetic memory that I speak about in previous videos. So if you don't know what that is, go back and check that out. It's in the 6 things your adoptee will struggle with, and it's the genetic memory and pre-birth or in utero experiences that we now know impact humans. But I feel, for me, for certain, there was an unconscious knowledge pre-verbally that I was in a place that was not my tribe, and that also impacted how I attempted to adjust over the next few years. So not just the separation and the trauma around that, but just this sort of unconscious knowledge, if you like, that this wasn't my tribe, and that's a very difficult thing, and it's a very sad thing if you think about an innocent baby who's potentially being showered with lots of love and affection, that they don't know you, so you know, unconsciously they know that you're not their mother, and so those things can be compounded as they grow older. And so to open up these conversations through play or during as early as possible is really an advisable thing to do. Okay, but so back to the point around physicality. So my family looked quite different to me. As I said, we were all white, come from the same race, same culture, but there are these differences that you can't really kind of control for in the process. And in our case, it was around build and around bone structure and that kind of thing. And I have a very vivid early memory of, I think it must have been a rare sunny day one summer when I was quite young, and sitting out, and my legs were stretched out in front of me and I didn't have any shoes on my feet, and I guess we were sunbathing, and my adoptive mum came and sat down next to me, and she didn't have any shoes on her feet. And I remember looking at her feet, and I remember looking at my feet, and it's really etched onto my memory. And I felt like, as we all do when we're young, oddly, because we have no other means, we have no other way of understanding ourselves other than to think that those around us are sort of somehow superior and the right way, whereas we kind of feel like there's something wrong with us, that we're flawed, that the adults have got it right, and that's just general for kids, unfortunately. So I looked at my mum's feet that were very, very different to my feet, and I remember thinking there was something wrong with me. I remember thinking, wow, like my feet, my toes, they're totally different. So I knew I was adopted, but I kind of thought there was something wrong with me. I thought there was something physically wrong with me. As I grew up and got a bit older, I obviously I started doing activities with school and what have you, and I was always really interested in people's feet. So I'd always look at their feet and compare them with mine. And over the years, I realised actually my feet weren't that weird at all. In fact, they weren't weird, but I didn't know that. And it's just an example. It's one example of how we compare ourselves physically to the people around us. And I'm not talking about the psychological yet. That's for another video. I'm purely talking about the physical self, and how when you're in a home, in a space, in an environment where the people around you are physically very different. Now, of course, for me, it just so happened that my mum and my dad were actually quite similar to each other. They both had dark hair and quite a dark skin and dark eyes, and similar bone structure. And so I was in that environment, and I didn't really have anything that was comparable to myself. And this became a bit of a fixation for many, many years. Not just that, but I had very light, very curly hair, and they both had very dark hair. So these kinds of things, they're really tough to have to think about, and the daily reminders of that. Now, I don't know whether having a conversation around how weird that felt for me would have made me feel much better. I just think it would. I have no proof of that, but the research suggests that issues of identity, having the space to be able to explore those feelings in a safe way, and to have that person say, what's it feel like? Or even when they're young, to be able to, you know, have your younger child sort of express that through drawing and painting, and kind of talk about those differences in a space that feels safe enough to do that is super, super important. And I've also heard others say that the craziest moment of their life in terms of joyous is the moment when they had their own child, because for many of us, that was the first moment where you clapped eyes on somebody who's connected to you genetically, who has your blood running through their veins. And I think many people take that for granted. Many people, humans who are not involved in this in some way, take that for granted. Now, obviously, that's a whole different topic, the subject of taking for granted the ability to conceive. But no, I'm talking about the genetic links. People take those for granted. And as an adoptee, there are reminders around us every single day, physical reminders, and that can be really quite painful. In recent years, I have found certain members of my own biological family, and immediately I'm looking for physical likenesses. It's wired into us. It's a really powerful thing, this need to belong. Psychology talks about this. There are lots of areas of psychology dedicated to the study of this need for belonging, and for an adoptee it's really key in terms of our adjustment and how it can affect us throughout our lives. But part of belonging is feeling the same as people around you. And so when people see their own child, adoptees see their own flesh and blood for the very first time, it's a hugely, hugely emotional thing. And as I say, the first thing I looked for in some of my biological family, not immediate families, sort of slightly further away, but still close enough nonetheless for me to notice those physical similarities. And I was looking for them straight away. And they're there. You know, you see the bone structure, and you know that's inherited, and it's just a moment, a flicker of recognition. I'm really lucky that I've been able to see that at this stage in my life. For many years it was very elusive, and I never had that. I thought I would never have that, actually. And so I have been lucky that I've been able to achieve that, and some never do. And so that sense of belonging can be elusive for many, for most of their lives. So it's a really good topic to open up with your adoptee and to ask them, invite them to share with you their feelings around their physical selves and what that's like. And as I say, with all these videos, it will build bonds and it will build trust. Now, your relationships aren't going to be perfect; they're tough, but at least if you're doing this part, you're really helping those bonds and that trust and the future of your adopted child in terms of their ability to achieve well-being in their lives. If you've got any questions, please do ask me, comment below, or you can contact me. My website is linked in the channel section, and I'd be delighted to speak to you on this topic. I hope you find these videos helpful and useful, and please like, share, tell your friends and colleagues, and if you want to know when the next videos are coming out, please do hit the bell, and I shall be back with more and more sort of specifics, if you like, the more specific things that that we adoptees tend to struggle with. All right, thanks for watching.